Welcome to Specific Lab. Today I'm going to show you how to put together a simple to build mobile fence that you can move out of your way anytime you need. Let's begin. In the process of doing our backyard upgrades, we realized our new dog likes to chew. And the building we are doing much of the renovations to is open at the back. So to keep the dog from finding a nice chew toy, I mentioned to the wife that I needed a gate. Her requests were that it had to look pretty and be completely mobile. I first started with using only pressure treated lumber, since a fence will be in the elements all of the time. I cut all of the lumber and laid out the basic shape on the floor. The fencing will be about 160 inches wide, so I had to use several boards. I then brought in the first piece of lattice to make sure everything lined up as planned. Note that the end boards are sitting on edge and the others are laying flat. This will allow the side boards to sandwich the lattice and strengthen the whole fencing. I then secured the end pieces in place with 2.5-inch exterior screws. I next marked the length of the lattice and trimmed down both pieces with a circular saw using a piece of foam insulation as the base. Make sure to watch out for the staples in the wood or that could quickly dull the blade. I then marked the first piece in place and positioned the side boards on top. Securing the boards together will allow them to pinch the lattice in place. Also, making sure a couple screws go through the lattice can help as well. I then repeated this process on the other side. For the center boards, I had to attach them to the top and bottom sections. So I just added a few screws at an angle similar to how a pocket screw would work, but without the drilling. I then added a second middle board and screwed it to the opposite side. Next, I took some of the scrap wood from the first cuts and added some strength to the bottom of the frame in several locations. I then planned to flip the fence on edge and quickly realized it needed more support. So I attached a temporary board across the top for strength. Once I flipped up the fence, I realized it was still too weak. So I added some side supports from the leftovers to the top and bottom. I then removed the top piece. At the top of the fence, some of the lattice was sticking through, so I grabbed my pool saw and removed them. But most had staples, so I needed pliers too. I also had a slight accident, so just remember to always respect the danger of your tools. I then used an orbital sander to quickly clean up any rough edges. I picked up some of these wheel and tire combos. They're actually tube tires at a really good discount at a local store, and that should handle the weight of this. Now originally I was going to go with 6 of these wheels on this to move it around, but I have a feeling I'm going to just go with 4. And the reason why is that right here in the center, this piece of wood actually juts out further on both sides, which means the center tires would stick a lot further out than the ones on the end. So I'm going to try and just do 4 tires right here about the center of each side, and we'll see if that'll work. So I positioned the wheels to about the center of each section, which should balance out the weight. The axle I am using is a 5/8-inch solid steel shaft that I picked up at the local store. I measured out the length and sawed it in half, which took a while. Once cut, I filed down the new edge so that I could add an axle nut. This will help secure the wheels in place. I then went back to the fence where I used a spade bit to drill a hole all the way through the side boards. This does not make the cleanest hole, but they will be covered by the wheels. I then raised one end of the fence with some wood so that the wheel would have clearance. And I then tapped the first axle in place. Going to the opposite side, I started to add the wheel and nut and realized I needed support. So I grabbed my sledgehammer and used it as a brace while holding it through the lattice. If you cannot support the other side yourself, you might need help with this step. Also, while installing the wheels, I made sure the fence was supported and would not fall. I next moved to the second position and repeated the process. And after a quick test roll, I wheeled the fence to the back of the building. The fence is quite heavy and took a little muscle to get it into position. But once there, I was able to push it back and forth with ease. Now the fence was not designed to be perfectly flush with the building, otherwise it would take extra strength to pull it out of the way. And that small amount of gap will not let our dog pass through anyway. Now for added safety, I wanted to secure the fence to the building so there was little chance of it falling on anyone. So I drilled a hole in the end and twisted in a hook. I then measured out a chain for the correct length to one of the building supports and then cut off the excess. With a couple exterior screws and washers, I attached the chain to the building. This is a simple setup, but works well for my fence. I then repeated this step on the opposite side. Now this fence is a little heavier than I thought it would be to move around, but it is still mobile. And so my wife might not be able to move it really easily, but I can come out here and move it anytime she wants. And this should keep the dog out of our area. So, if you like this video, make sure you click the like button and tell us what you think about it in the comments. Also, I have some other videos right here that go along with backyard upgrades, so make sure you check those out.